I'll tell you what changed my whole life. I finally discovered that it's all risky. The minute you were born, it got risky. If you think trying is risky, wait until they hand you the bill for not trying. Life itself is risky. Every single choice we make, every action we take, carries with it some element of uncertainty. Now, the question isn't whether or not we should take risks, because that's not really a choice we have. The question is, which risks are worth taking? Everything in life has a price. There's no free ride, no safe option where you get all the reward and none of the risk. Some people think they're playing it safe by sticking to the familiar, by holding back, by avoiding risks. But what they don't realize is that playing it safe is the riskiest thing you can do. Why? Because while you're standing still, the world keeps moving. Opportunities slip away. Time ticks on. And before you know it, the cost of staying where you are becomes higher than the cost of trying something new. Tell me, how many opportunities have you let pass by because you were afraid of the risk? Think about that for a moment. Maybe it was a new business venture, a career change, an investment, or even a relationship. You weighed the risks, thought about all the things that could go wrong, and decided it's just too risky. But what we often forget is that there's a risk in doing nothing, too. People tend to focus on the risk of failure. They say, what if I lose? What if I make a mistake? What if things don't work out? But they forget to ask, what if I succeed? What if this is the opportunity that changes my life? What if this is the risk worth taking? They focus on the downside and completely ignore the upside. And that's where most people get stuck, too focused on avoiding loss to ever go after gain. Think about it. How many times have you heard stories about people who missed their shot because they were too afraid to take a risk? It happens all the time. People wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, when the truth is, there's no such thing. Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. The opportunities come and go, and the ones who are willing to embrace the risk are the ones who get the reward. But I get it. Risk can be intimidating. I'm not telling you to dive in blindly, because that's not smart either. There's a difference between calculated risk and reckless risk. The smart way to approach life's risks is to prepare yourself, to educate yourself, to do your homework so you can take those risks from a place of strength and understanding. And that's something Mr. Shoaff taught me early on. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. In other words, don't ask for the risks to go away. Ask for the wisdom and skill to handle them. The people who succeed are not the ones who avoid risk. No, they're the ones who are willing to take it on because they know they've done the work to prepare themselves. They know they've equipped themselves with the tools and the knowledge to make the best possible decisions, even in uncertain situations. And that's the key. You can't control the risk, but you can control how ready you are to face it. I remember when I first got started in business. Now, I didn't know much about business at the time, but I knew I had to try. And sure enough, I took some hits. I made mistakes. But each of those mistakes was a lesson. I didn't see them as failures. I saw them as tuition, the price I paid for learning. And that's something I want you to remember. Every risk you take teaches you something, even if it doesn't work out the way you planned. In fact, the risks that don't work out often teach you the most valuable lessons. But the key is you have to be willing to take that step. You have to be willing to put yourself in the game. And then there's the risk of regret. Most people don't think about it until it's too late. See, we tend to focus on the risk of failure. But what about the risk of looking back and saying, I could have done more? What about the risk of waking up one day and realizing that you've spent your life playing it safe, and because of that, you've missed out on the best parts of life? That's a real risk, and it's a heavy one. Regret is a powerful thing. It weighs on you. It sticks with you. And unlike most risks, which come with the chance to recover or to try again, regret is permanent. Once an opportunity passes, it's gone. You don't get a second shot at the moments you let slip away. And that's something I want you to think about as you go through life. Are you more afraid of failing, or are you more afraid of regretting never having tried? I've met a lot of people over the years who were incredibly talented, intelligent, capable individuals, but they let their fear of risk hold them back. They could have built something amazing, but they didn't. They played small. They played it safe. And when I'd ask them why, they'd say, well, Jim, I didn't want to take the risk. But what they didn't realize was that they were taking a risk the whole time. The risk of never knowing what could have been. And I hear it all the time. It's just not the right time. There's too much uncertainty in the world right now. But I'm telling you, there's always going to be uncertainty. That's life. There's never a perfect time. There's never a guarantee. And if you wait for everything to line up perfectly before you make your move, you'll be waiting forever. The people who succeed don't wait for certainty. They move forward despite uncertainty. They understand that waiting for the perfect moment is the surest way to miss out. And keep this in mind. The world is changing, whether you like it or not. Everything is in motion. Technology is advancing, industries are evolving, and the way we live and work is constantly shifting. Now, you can choose to stand still and avoid the risk of change, but I'm telling you, that's the biggest risk of all. Because while you're standing still, the world is moving ahead, and pretty soon, you'll find yourself left behind. Look at the people who built empires from nothing. People like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Andrew Carnegie. These were risk takers. They weren't afraid to fail. They weren't afraid to put themselves out there and take a shot at something bigger than themselves. And sure, they experienced setbacks. They experienced failure, but that didn't stop them. They understood that failure is a part of the process, that you don't get the reward without the risk. Henry Ford said, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. And that's exactly the attitude you need to have when it comes to taking risks. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of the bumps in the road. Those bumps are there to teach you, to refine you, to make you better the next time around. Tell me, what's the worst that could happen if you take a risk? Really think about it. Most of the time, the worst case scenario isn't as bad as we make it out to be in our minds. We build up this fear, this anxiety about what might go wrong, and it stops us in our tracks. But if you take a step back and really look at it, you'll often find that the fear is exaggerated. Sure, things might not go exactly as planned, but that's life. The key is to understand that you can recover from almost anything. You can rebuild. You can learn and try again. But if you never take that first step, you'll never know what's possible. Here's what I want you to do. Shift your mindset about risk. Don't see it as something to avoid. See it as something to embrace. Understand that it's a natural part of the process. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask yourself, what if I succeed? Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, focus on what could go right. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, create the moment. You must be willing to take a chance on yourself.